Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 4 of Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from chapter 8. I was swimming in an enormous duck pond, gigantic birds with beaks as big as bayonets swooping towards me. I opened my mouth to scream for help and started choking in the murky green water. I coughed and went under. I got tangled in long slimy ropes of weed. I couldn't struggle free. The vast ducks swam above my head, their great webbed feet batting me. I was trapped down there, my lungs bursting. No one knew, no one cared. No one came to rescue me. I woke up, gasping, soaked through. I thought for one terrible moment I might have wet myself, but it was only a night sweat. I staggered up out of my damp bed, mumbling, "Mum, Mum," and then I remembered. I stopped, shivering on the dark landing. I couldn't run to Mum for a cuddle. She was 6 miles up in the air, halfway across the world. I started crying like a baby, huddled down on the carpet. "Floss!" Dad came stumbling out of the bedroom in his pyjamas and very nearly tripped over me. "What are you doing here, pet? Don't cry, come on. I'll take you back to bed. It's all right. Dad's here. You've just had a bad dream." It seemed as if I was stuck in a bad dream. Dad tucked me in gently, but he didn't know how to plump up my pillow properly and smooth my sheet. He didn't find me a big tissue for my runny nose. He didn't comb my hair with his fingers. He did kiss me softly on the cheek, but his face was scratchy with stubble, and he didn't smell sweet and powdery like Mum. I tried to cuddle down under the duvet, but it smelled wrong too, of old house and chip fat. I wanted to go to Mum's house, but it was all changed. Our stuff was all packed up. Soon there would be strangers renting it. I imagined another girl my age in my white bedroom with the cherry red carpet and the cherries on the curtains. I saw her looking out of my window at my garden and my special swing, and I couldn't bear it. 3 months ago, Steve had fixed up the baby swing for Tiger, all colours and bobbles and flashing lights. I'd done the big sister bit and patiently pushed him backwards and forwards, but I couldn't help remarking that I wished I'd had a swing when I was little. I didn't think Mum and Steve had taken much notice, but the next weekend when I was at Dad's, Steve rigged up this amazing, proper, traditional wooden swing, big enough for an adult, certainly big enough for me. "My swing," I sobbed now. "What? Please don't cry so, Floss. I can't make out what you're saying," said Dad, sounding really worried. "Listen, I know how badly you're missing your mum. I've got your airline ticket safe in the kitchen drawer. We can book you onto a flight and you can join up with them. It'll be like a big adventure flying all that way." No, I want my swing," I said. Dad missed a beat before he understood. "Well, that's easy peasy," he said. "We'll nip round to your mum's place tomorrow and take your swing. Don't upset yourself, darling. Your old dad will sort things for you." We went round to the house early Sunday morning, before Dad opened up the cafe. Dad parked the van outside the house. It looked so absolutely normal, I couldn't believe Mum and Steve and Tiger weren't lurking behind Mum's ruched blinds. We didn't have a key, but we didn't need one to wiggle open the bolt of the side gate and walk around into the back garden. Tiger's swing wasn't there. It had been dismantled and packed up. The only trace of it was the 4 square marks in the grass where the legs had been. My swing still stood there sturdily. Too sturdily. Dad tried to take it down. He even broke into the garden shed and bashed at the swing's supports with Steve's tools. The swing didn't budge, but Steve's stainless steel spade got horribly dented. "Oh, bum," said Dad. "Now I suppose I'll have to pay for a new blooming spade on top of everything else." "Never mind, Dad." "But I do mind. Why am I so useless? Look, I'm going to collapse that swing if it's the last thing I do." Dad battered and bashed a lot more. He tugged and tussled with the swing. He even tried digging around it with a bent spade. But the supports went way down, almost to Australia. Dad stood still, wiping his brow, his face damp and scarlet. "It doesn't matter, Dad, honestly," I said. "It matters to me," said Dad grimly. I peered up at the swing, wishing I hadn't said a word. Dad stared too, his brow furrowed, as if he was trying to fell the swing by sheer willpower. Then he suddenly clapped his hands and ran and got Steve's scary, long pruning shears. "Dad, what are you going to do?" "It's okay, Floss. I've just worked it out. We'll liberate your swing. We just need the rope and the seat. You don't need the stupid supports. It's going to be a portable swing now, you'll see." Dad reached up and snipped at the top of each rope. They came thumping down with the wooden seat attached. "There," he said, as if he'd perfected the most astonishing trick. I blinked doubtfully at the severed swing and said nothing. When we got back home, Dad took the swing out in the backyard. He's never actually got round to turning it into a proper garden. There's not really room anyway. There are big wheelie bins for taking the rubbish from the cafe and all the cardboard boxes of old stuff that Dad's going to sort one day, lurking under tarpaulin, and bits and pieces of very old bikes, and an electric scooter that never worked properly. There's a tiny flower bed of pansies, because Dad says They've got smiley faces. And an old sandpit I used to play beaches in when I was very little, and an ancient gnarled apple tree that's too old to produce any fruit. Although it was the reason Dad bought the cafe long ago. He was going to make our own apple pies and apple cake and apple chutney and apple sauce. He painted a big new sign to go above the door, the Apple Cafe, and he painted the walls and window panes bright apple green. He changed the name to Charlie's Cafe long ago, but the apple green paint is still there, though it's faded to a yellowy lime and it's peeling everywhere. Mum always nagged Dad to chop the apple tree down because it wasn't doing anything useful, just causing shadows in the yard. But Dad reacted as if Mum had asked him to chop me down. Well, hang your swing on the apple tree, Dad said now. He spent all afternoon putting it up. He tested the branches first, swinging on them himself, yelling like Tarzan to make me laugh. I still didn't feel a bit like laughing, but I giggled politely. Then Dad went up and down a ladder, fixing one end of the swing rope here and the other and there. He had to take an hour's break hunting down an ancient encyclopedia in a box of books in the attic to find out how to do the safest knots. When at last he had the swing hanging, we found it was too low, so that my bottom nearly bumped the ground. Dad had to start all over again, shortening the ropes, but eventually, late afternoon, the swing was ready. There you are, Princess. Your throne awaits, Dad said, ultra proudly. I put on my birthday princess gown over my jeans to please him and sat on my swing. Dad beamed at me and then went pottering off again to find his old camera to commemorate the moment. He didn't come back for a long time. I had to stay swinging. I didn't feel like swinging somehow. I wouldn't have told Dad for the world, but you couldn't really swing properly now it was attached to the apple tree. The swing juddered about too abruptly and hung slightly lopsided, so you started to feel queasy very quickly. It wasn't very pretty out in the backyard, staring at the tarpaulins and bits of bike, and the wheelie bins were really smelly. I sat there, and sat there, and sat there, and when Dad came back eventually, clutching his Polaroid, I had a short burst of swinging and smiled at the camera. It's a great swing, isn't it? Said Dad proudly, as if he'd made it all by himself. Hey, why don't you phone Rhiannon and see if she wants to come round and play on it too? I hesitated. I'd asked Rhiannon round to play heaps of time, but always at Mum's. I'd wanted to keep my time at the weekend, especially for Dad. But now all my time was with Dad. Go on, phone her, said Dad. Ask her round to tea. Does she like chip butties? I wasn't sure. We always ate salads and chicken and fruit at Rhiannon's. Her school-packed lunches were also ultra-healthy options, wholemeal rolls and carrot sticks and apples and weenie boxes of raisins. But maybe chip butties would be a wonderful wicked treat. I knew I was kidding myself. I suspected it would be a big, big, big mistake to invite her round, but I felt so weird and lonely stuck here with Dad, with nothing to do. If Rhiannon was here, we could muck about and do silly stuff, and maybe I'd start to feel a bit more normal again. I phoned her up. I got her mum first. Oh, Flora, I'm so glad you called. How are you? She asked in hushed tones. I was so shocked when Rhiannon told me about your mother. She was acting as if Mum had died. I'm fine, I lied. Please can Rhiannon come round to tea? What, today? Well, her grandma and grandpa are here. Tell me, Flora, do you see your grandma a lot? My grandma? I said, surprised. Well, she sends me birthday presents, but she doesn't always remember how old I am. Dad says she gets muddled. What about your mum's mum? She died when I was a baby. There's Steve's mum, but I don't think she likes me much. You poor little mite. Well, listen to me, sweetheart. Any time you need to discuss anything, girlie, you come and have a word with me, all right? I know your dad will do his best, but it's not the same. Not the same at all. A growing girl needs her mother. I just can't understand how your mother... She let her voice tail away. I clutched the phone so tightly it was a wonder the plastic didn't buckle. I couldn't stand her going on like that, as if Mum had deliberately abandoned me. I decided I didn't want Rhiannon to come round after all, but her mum was busy calling to her and asking for details of the address. I heard Rhiannon saying stuff in the background. It didn't sound as if she wanted to come round. You've got to go. It's the least you can do. Poor little Flora will still be feeling lonely, Rhiannon's mother hissed. I'm fine, really, I said. Yes, dear, I'm sure you are, she said, in a don't think you can fool me tone of voice. I couldn't fool Rhiannon either, when she came round. She was wearing a lacy blue top and white jeans. She had one little plait tied with blue and white thread in her long, glossy black hair. She looked beautiful. She seemed so out of place in our cafe. Oh, Floss, you poor thing. Your eyes look so sore, all red and puffy, she said. It's an allergy, I said quickly. Rhiannon sighed at me. She turned to Dad. My mum says you must phone her if you've got any problems. Dad blinked. Problems? You know, over Flossie, said Rhiannon. She was acting like she was my social worker or something. Even Dad looked a bit irritated. We haven't got any problems. Floss and me, have we, doll baby? But it's very kind of your mum to offer all the same, so thank you very much. Now, would you two girls like to go and play on Floss's swing? He led the way through the cafe, out into the kitchen, and opened the door to the backyard dramatically, as if Disneyland beckoned. Rhiannon stepped wearily onto the backyard, walking as if she was wading through mud. She peered at the wheelie bins, the tarpaulins and bits of bike. It was definitely a mistake inviting her round. I suddenly saw Rhiannon telling her mother all about her dismal backyard. Worse, I saw her telling Margot and Judy and all the girls at school. I looked at her anxiously. "Oh, there's your swing. How lovely," she said. "I know it's not lovely," I whispered, "but Dad's fixed it all up for me specially." "Sure, OK, I understand," said Rhiannon. She raised her voice so that Dad could hear in the kitchen. "Oh, Floss, your swing looks great hanging on the apple tree," she said, enunciating very clearly, as if Dad was deaf or daft. She hopped on it, had one token swing, and then hopped off again. "So, should we go to your bedroom and play?" she said. "Maybe we should swing a bit more," I said. "But it's like boring," said Rhiannon. "Come on, Floss. I've been nice to your dad. Now let's go and do stuff." "OK." We went back indoors. Dad had started peeling potatoes in the kitchen. He looked baffled to see us back so quickly. "What's up, girls?" he said. "Nothing's up, Dad. I just want to show Rhiannon my bedroom," I said. I didn't want to show her my bedroom. She looked around it, sucking in her breath. "Is this your bedroom?" she said. She wrinkled her brow. "But I don't get it. Your bedroom's lovely, all red and white and clean and pretty." "That's my bedroom in my mum's." "You know it is," I said. I sat on my old saggy bed and stroked the limp duvet as if I was comforting it. "So, OK, where's all your stuff? The cherry curtains and the red velvet cushions and your special dressing table with a velvet stool." "I've got all my clothes and books and art stuff here. The curtains are still at Mum's and the other things have been put into storage. They wouldn't fit in the bedroom here." I scarcely fitted in my bedroom at Dad's. It was not much bigger than a cupboard. There was just room for the bed and an old chest of drawers. Dad had started to paint it with some special silver paint, but it was a very small tin, and it ran out before he could cover the last drawer. He'd propped a mirror on top of the chest, and I'd laid out my brush and comb set and my china ballet dancer and my little cherry red glass vase from my dressing room at home. They didn't make the chest look much prettier. "Dad's going to finish painting the chest when he can find some more silver paint," I said. "And he's going to put up bookshelves, and we're going to get a new duvet, midnight blue with silver stars, and I'm going to have these luminous stars stuck to the ceiling, and one of those glitter balls like you get at dances, and fairy lights, and I was running out of ideas. Rhiannon looked at me pityingly. "What sort of house is your mum going to have in Australia?" she asked. "They're just renting. It's just some little flat," I said. I was lying. Mum had shown me a brochure showing beautiful modern flats with balconies and a sea view. They'd deliberately chosen a flat with 3 big bedrooms so that I could have the room of my dreams. "It couldn't be littler than this flat," said Rhiannon. "You must be a bit nuts to want to stay here rather than go to Australia." "I want to be with my dad," I said. "Do you love your dad much more than your mum then?" "No, I love them both the same, but Dad needs me more," I said. "Well, it seems crazy if you ask me," said Rhiannon, sitting down on the bed beside me. It creaked in protest. She peered down at it, shaking her head in disgust. "Well, I'm not asking you," I said. "And anyway, you were the one who said I didn't have to go. I thought you wanted me to stay so we could be best friends forever. Don't you want to be my best friend now, Rhiannon?" "Of course I do." "We're best friends forever?" "Yes, like forever and ever, dummy," said Rhiannon, sighing and shaking her long hair over her shoulders. She was saying all the right words, but she was saying them in this silly American accent. Chapter 9. I had more bad dreams that night. I wished I'd kept my great big kanga to cuddle in bed. I couldn't believe I'd actually thrown away all my old teddies. All I had was the limp, lopsided elephant and dog that Grandma had knitted me. I reached out of bed and tucked one on either side of my head. They didn't look very fetching, but they felt warm and soft, like a special scarf. I lay awake worrying that the bad dreams would come back the minute I closed my eyes. It helped that every time I wriggled round on my pillow, a soft little knitted paw patted me. I fell asleep just as it was starting to get light, and then woke with a start. Something was ringing and ringing and ringing. The telephone. I stumbled out of bed and ran to answer it. Dad lumbered behind me in his pyjamas, huffing and puffing. "Hello?" I said into the phone. "Oh, there you are, Floss. I've been ringing for ages," said Mum. "I thought you and Dad must have left for school already. What are you doing? Having breakfast?" Yes," I said, not wanting to tell Mum we'd slept in. She sounded so close, as if she was back in our house across town. "Oh, Mum, have you come back?" I said breathlessly. "What? Don't be silly, darling. We're only just got here. My Lord, what a journey. Do you know, Tiger didn't sleep a wink the entire flight. Steve and I were just about going demented." "I can imagine," I said. "But never mind. We're here now, and you should see this apartment, Floss. I feel like a film star. We've got a fantastic sea view, and even though it's winter here, it's bright and sunny, and I just can't believe how beautiful it all is. It would all be so perfect if only you were here too. Oh, Floss, I miss you so. I miss you too, Mum. So, so much, I whispered. I didn't want to be tactless to Dad, but he patted my shoulder reassuringly to show now he understood. I just know you'd love it here. If you could just see for yourself how lovely everything is, you'd jump on a plane tomorrow. I know you would. Oh, darling, are you all right? Is Dad looking after you okay? Yes, Mum, I'm fine, really. He's giving you proper food and not endless fry-ups and cakes and chip butties. Yes, Mum, I said. I was still feeling queasy from last night's chip butties. Rhiannon had been a little bit rude about them when Dad served them up for our tea. Very rude, actually. I'd felt so sorry for Dad. I'd said quickly, well, goody goody. If you don't like them, that means they're all more for me. I'd ended up eating all my chip butties and Rhiannon's. Dad boiled eggs and ran down to the corner shop and bought tomatoes and cucumber and lettuce to make Rhiannon her own special salad, but she only ate 2 mouthfuls, and she didn't appreciate him turning them into funny faces for her. Does your dad think I'm like a baby, she said. Dad's bought special salad stuff, I told Mum truthfully, and he's fixed up a new swing in the garden, and I've had Rhiannon round to play. That's good, said Mum. Well, I don't want to make you late for school, sweetheart. You take care now. I'm going to send you lots of photos of our flat and the beaches and the parks and the opera house. Once you see them, I just know you'll be dying to come and join us. I swallowed. I didn't know what to say. Most of me ached to be in Australia with Mum, but not without Dad. Do you want to speak to Dad, Mum? Well, I'll have a little word, yes please. Goodbye then, Floss, I love you so much. Goodbye, Mum, I love you too, I said. I leaned against Dad while Mum questioned him. She sounded like a nurse taking a full medical history. She asked, is Floss looking mopey? Has she cried much? Is she sucking her thumb a bit? Is she as chatty as usual? Is she really eating properly? Is she having trouble getting to sleep? Did she wake up at all in the night? Is she having bad dreams? I started to expect her to ask how many times I've been to the toilet. She's fine, Dad kept saying. For pity's sake, you've only been gone 5 minutes. She's not likely to have gone into a nervous decline already. Now, we'd better be leaving for school. What? Of course she's had breakfast, said Dad, crossing his fingers in front of my face. He said goodbye and then put the phone down. Phew, he said. Oh dear, Floss. Now let's shove some breakfast down you quick. I'm not sure there's time for egg and bacon. I don't want breakfast, Dad. There's not time. I'm going to be late. No, you've got to have something inside you. Cornflakes? I'll shove my jeans on and sort something out while you run and get washed and dressed. I hadn't properly unpacked my pink pull-along case or my cardboard boxes of clothes. My school blouses were horribly screwed up and my skirt was creased so much it looked as if it was pleated. Dad, can you iron these? I said. What? Oh, God, I'm not sure my old iron works anymore. I don't really bother with my stuff. I just drip them dry. I had to go to school all crumpled. I couldn't find my good white socks, so I had to wear an old pair of navy woolly winter ones, and my trainers were all muddy from the garden. I couldn't even get my hair to go right. I'd been tossing and turning all through the night, and now all my curls stuck straight up in the air, as if I was plugged into an electric socket. Dad didn't seem to notice as he drove me to school. We arrived at the exact same time Rhiannon was jumping out of her mum's Range Rover. They noticed. Floss, oh dear, said Rhiannon's mum. You look a bit bedraggled, darling. I'm fine, I said. Why have you got those funny socks on? Like navy, said Rhiannon. And yuck, what's that on your shoes? It's not dog poo, is it? No, it's just a bit of mud, I said, blushing. Dad was peering out of the van anxiously, biting his lip. He frowned at Rhiannon's mum, as Rhiannon's mum leapt out of her Range Rover and went over to him. Look, Mr. Barnes, I know it's difficult for you now you're a one-parent family. Flossie's got 2 parents, said Dad. I'm simply the one currently in charge. Whatever. I was wondering, you could always pop a bag of laundry into my house once a week. My cleaning lady often irons for me. I'm sure she wouldn't mind. It's very kind of you, but we'll do our own washing and ironing, said Dad. Well, if you think you can cope, said Rhiannon's mum, making it plain by her tone that she didn't feel Dad could cope at all. Bye, Dad, I said, waving, so he had an excuse to escape. He waved back worriedly, obviously seeing now how scruffy I looked. I gave him a big beaming smile to show him I didn't care, stretching my mouth unnaturally wide as if I was at the dentist's. You look like you're going to take a bite out of someone, Floss, said Rhiannon. Margot and Judy were sitting on the wall. They heard what Rhiannon had said and started snorting with laughter. Then they took in my appearance and laughed all over again. Oh, my God, said Margot. What do you think? What do you look like, Floss? Has there been some major disaster, so you've been, like, buried alive? Even your hair's exploded. Look at it, all fluffed out and standing on end. And what's that funny smell, said Judy, wrinkling her nose. It's like chip fat. Well, that figures, said Margot. Her dad runs the Greasy Spoon Calf. It's not greasy, I said fiercely. It's very special. My dad's chip butties are famous. Margot and Judy cackled so much that they nearly fell off the wall. Rhiannon got the giggles too. She got her hands over her mouth, but I could still see she was sniggering. Don't laugh at me, I said. Well, you do look funny, but I know it's not your fault, said Rhiannon. Mum said I've got to make special allowances for you. Why have you got to make special allowances for old smelly Chip? Asked Margot. Because her mum's walked out on her. No, she hasn't. Don't say that, I protested. Okay. Don't get all touchy. I'm trying to be extra nice to you. She might say she was being extra nice, but she certainly wasn't acting it. I was scared I was going to start crying in front of them, so I ran into school. I hoped Rhiannon would run after me. I wanted her to put her arms around me and tell me I didn't really look funny, and she didn't care what I looked like anyway, because she was my best friend. She didn't run after me. She stayed smirking in the playground with Margot and Judy. I locked myself in a lavatory and had a little private cry. Then I heard someone else come in. I clamped my hand over my nose and mouth to stop all the little snorty, snuffy sounds leaking out. I sat very still. Someone seemed to be standing there, waiting for me. Rhiannon, I called hopefully. It's Susan. Oh, I blew my nose as best I could on school toilet paper, flushed the loo and emerged, feeling foolish. Susan looked at me. I glanced at myself in the mirror, above the wash-hand basins. I looked even worse than I imagined, and now I had red eyes and a runny nose too. I've got a cold, I said, splashing water on my face. Yes, said Susan solemnly, although we both knew I was fibbing. I tried wetting my hair while I was at it, to smooth it down. It went obstinately fluffier, springing up all over the place. I sighed. What? Said Susan. I hate my hair, I mumbled. I think you've got lovely hair. I'd give anything to have fair curls. It's not pretty yellow fair. It's practically snow white and much too curly. I can't grow it. It grows up instead of down. I'm trying to grow mine, but it's taking forever, said Susan, tugging at her soft brown hair. I'd love it to grow down past my shoulders, but I'm going to have to wait 2 whole years because hair grows only 1/4 of an inch every month. Vitamin E is meant to be good for healthy growth, so I'm eating lots of eggs and wholemeal bread and apricots and spinach. But it doesn't seem to be having any noticeable effect so far. You know such a lot of stuff, Susan. No, I don't. You do. You know about the rate hair grows and vitamin E and all that. I don't know how to make friends, said Susan. We looked at each other. I want to be your friend, Susan, I said. It's just... I know, said Susan. Rhiannon. I'm sorry, she's so mean to you. Susan, your ballad. I thought it was so good. Oh, no. Rhiannon was right about that. It was rubbish. Maybe you could come round and play sometime. Over at my dad's, I said. It's not posh or anything. It's just a funny cafe and we live over the top. I haven't got a very nice bedroom, but... I'd love to come, said Susan. She smiled at me. I smiled back. I fought hard. Rhiannon would see if Susan came home with me after school. What about Saturday, I said, glancing over my shoulder, scared that Rhiannon had crept up somehow and was standing right behind me, listening. Saturday would be wonderful, said Susan. Great, I swallowed. The only thing is... Don't worry, I won't tell Rhiannon, said Susan. I blushed. This Saturday, I said. Yeah, this Saturday. You could come for tea, only it might not be very... Do you like chip butties? Susan considered. What are they, she said. I stared at her in surprise. How could you know 1,000,001 facts and figures and yet be as clueless about chip butties? I know what a chip is, said Susan. Fried potato. Well, you put a whole wodge of chips in a big soft white buttered roll. That's a chip butty. Chips in a roll, said Susan. It's not exactly healthy eating, I said humbly, but my dad specialises in unhealthy eating, I'm afraid. Sounds a delicious idea, said Susan. Then Margot and Judy came barging into the toilets. My heart started thudding, but it was all right. Rhiannon wasn't with them. Margot narrowed her eyes at me. Were you, talking to Swatty Potty, she asked. What are you? The Rhiannon Private Police Force, said Susan. No, she wasn't talking to me. No one talks to me. You know that. She marched out of the toilets, with Margot and Judy making silly whistling noises after her. Then they turned to me, Margot still looking suspicious. So, what are you, doing here? Rhiannon's looking for you. Is she? I ran past them. Susan was halfway down the corridor. I ran past her too. I ran all the way to our classroom, and there was Rhiannon, sitting on her desk, swinging her legs impatiently. She had such lovely, slender, lightly tanned legs. Mine were like spindly white matchsticks. There you are. And what did you run off for? You're so moody now, Floss, Rhiannon sighed, and if you don't mind my saying so, you really do look awful. I bet Mrs. Horsfield tells you off. You know how fussy she is, always going on about the boys not tucking their shirts in and telling all the girls off for rolling up their sleeves. You won't be her special teacher's pet today. Don't be horrid. I'm not. I'm just pointing out the truth. You are, so paranoid. And you are like, so stupid, talking like Margot, I thought inside my head, but I didn't dare say it. When Mrs. Horsfield came into the classroom, I hunched low at my desk, desperately smoothing my blouse and skirt, as if my hands were little irons. I was fine until halfway through maths, when Mrs. Horsfield asked me to come up to the front of the class to do a sum on the board. I stared at her, agonised, slumped so far down on my seat my chin was almost on the table. "Come on, Floss, don't look so bashful," she said. I can't do the sum, Mrs. Horsfield. Can't you pick someone else?" I suggested desperately. I know maths isn't your strong point, but let's see what you can do. It's really quite simple if you work through it logically. Up you get." I had no option. I walked up to the board in my crumpled clothes and navy socks and muddy trainers. Mrs. Horsfield looked startled. Margot and Judy giggled. I felt my cheeks flaming. I waited for Mrs. Horsfield to start shouting at me. Astonishingly, she simply handed me the chalk and said quietly, "Okay?" I was anything but okay. I tried to do the stupid sum, my hand shaking so that the chalk stuttered on the board. I kept getting stuck. Mrs. Horsfield gently prompted me, but I was in such a state I couldn't think of the simplest answer. I looked around helplessly, and there was Susan, mouthing the numbers at me. I wrote down quickly and then rushed back to my seat. Mrs. Horsfield let me go, but when the bell went for break, she beckoned me. "Can we have a word, Floss?" "Uh-oh," said Rhiannon. "Wait for me," I said. Yeah, said Rhiannon, but she was drifting off as we spoke. I stood at Mrs. Horsfield's desk. She waited until the last child had left the classroom. Then she put her head on one side, looking at me. "So why are you in such a sorry state? Dear, oh dear, did your mum sleep in this morning?" "Mum's not here any more," I said, and I burst into tears. "Oh, Floss," said Mrs. Horsfield. She put her arm around me. "Come on, sweetheart, tell me all about it." "Mum's gone to Australia for 6 months. She hasn't walked out on me. She's coming back. She badly wanted me to go with her, but I said I wanted to stay with my dad, and I do, but I want Mum too." I sobbed like a silly baby. Mrs. Horsfield didn't seem to mind. She reached into her handbag and found me a couple of tissues, one to wipe my eyes and one to blow my nose. "We could do with a whole handful of tissues for your shoes too," said Mrs. Horsfield. "So you and Dad are finding it a bit difficult just now?" "Dad's going to get an iron. We didn't have time to clean my shoes, and I've lost all my white school socks," I wailed. "I'm sure you'll get into a routine soon enough. Try to get your school things ready and waiting the night before. Don't just rely on Dad. You're a sensible girl. You can sort yourself out. It's really quite simple. Like the maths sum. You worked it out eventually, didn't you? Well, with a little help from Susan." I blinked. "Susan's such a nice girl," said Mrs. Horsfield. "She could do with a friend right now." "I know," I said. "I want to be her friend." I lowered my voice in case anyone was hanging around the classroom door. "We are friends in secret. She's coming round to my place this weekend. It's just we can't be friends at school because—" Mrs. Horsfield raised her eyebrows, but didn't comment. "Oh well, I'm sure you girls will sort yourselves out given time. Do come and have a little chat with me whenever you are feeling upset, or there's some little problem at home. I'm not just here to teach you lessons, you know. I'm here to help you in any way I can." She paused and then opened her desk drawer. There was a big paper bag inside. She opened it up and offered it to me. I saw one of her special pink ice buns with big cherry on the top. "Go on, take it," she said. "But it's not my birthday." "It's an unbirthday bun for a little mid-morning snack." "Isn't it your mid-morning snack, Mrs. Horsfield?" "I think I've been having far too many snacks, mid-morning or otherwise," said Mrs. Horsfield, patting her tummy. "Go on, off you go." I took the bun and went out into the corridor. Rhiannon had said she'd wait for me, but there was no sign of her, so I took my pink bun out of my paper bag and ate it all up by myself. I especially savoured the cherry. And that is where we will leave part 4 of Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.